The Pathless feels like half Zelda and half what should have been Celeste. This game has a lot of ambition, but it falls short because of that ambition. And ambition, I'm sure, was born from inspiration as opposed to passion. Not to say that the game has no passion, but it feels like it was more inspired than it was passionate. In Pathless, you play as a nameless hunter who has come to an island to help save the world by defeating the God Slayer. He has cursed the gods of this land and it is your job to save them. You do this by lighting obelisks around the island with talisman you find by completing puzzles. So before we move forward, I should make a statement. I don't like puzzles in games. I should emphasize my wording here. I don't like puzzles in games, but I'm okay with puzzle games. My reasoning is that most puzzles in games are there to block progression, especially during parts of the game's story. A big evil dragon is attacking the city and you need to get to the highest tower to fight it. However, there are 3 puzzles in your way. I just wonder how the dragon doesn't destroy anything while we are solving these puzzles. But with that statement, I will say that I still like puzzle games. In puzzle games, your only way to progress is through completing puzzles. And most of the time, the game is at a place where you can feel natural doing these without wondering what you're missing off screen. Pathless does this right. Do you want to get to the next well-animated cutscene, big boss battle, and story moment? Well, you need to complete a series of puzzles. While I like all these things, it's the puzzles in this game that really disappoint me. And it goes back to what I said in the opening line, this game should have been half Celeste. That's because, just like the title of this video, this game is in the wrong style. I think this game would have been better suited to a 2D style as opposed to a large 3D world. It goes back to the puzzles. My problem with them is that there is not enough here to justify the $40 price tag. There are 4 main areas in the Pathless, with the last being just a boss arena. If we divide that up, it's about $9 for each region and $2 for the last. And they all look great, have tons of puzzles and secrets to find, and each of them has its own hazard in the way of a giant storm which is holding one of the cursed gods. Still, these puzzles are weak in comparison to anything I have done. It still feels like this game should have had more. Like this was meant to be one of the substantial Breath of the Wild clones. The world is already here, and if you added a few more mechanics and enemies, you would have exactly that. So let me stop beating around the bush and flat out get started with the game's content. Puzzles are the first to speak about because they take up most of the game. So now I'll explain why I believe they're lackluster. You already know that in Breath of the Wild you have 4 runes that grant you a power upon use. All 120 shrines and some of the Korok seeds are based around the player having these tools. Each puzzle needs to be built around the player having at least one or all of these powers. In Pathless you have a bow and arrow and an eagle. This is all you have to solve every puzzle in the game. You've probably noticed by now that I'm using my bow to shoot markers in order to move faster. These talisman are the main form of movement. They let you dash, which is applied by the meter at the bottom of the screen. I want to emphasize how versatile these are. You start out with basic ones that let you move faster. In the first area, you have the time shots in order to get over a gap by shooting talisman while in the air. Later sections introduce ones that double your speed with each shot, and one that automatically propels you upward. That sounds good for just one mechanic, however these factors are only used to move from one area to the next, including using your eagle as a glider who can flap into the air for what is essentially a double jump. This is why I say the game should have been more like Celeste. Celeste also has a simple mechanic that is improved by outside sources, and each area uses that to its effect. However, these movement options are used in puzzles, just not the ones required for the story. The side puzzles are ones that instead grant crystals so you can get more flaps on your eagle. And this really disappoints me. It makes way more sense when I talk about how actual story puzzles are designed. So let's start with them now. The most common thing you will perform with these puzzles is fire arrow through hoops in order to reach targets. Some of these targets require that your arrow go through multiple hoops in order to suffice. There are mirrors that your arrows can bounce off of, lanterns that need to be lit with perspective shots, and pressure plates to which your eagle can carry a weight to leave on, and that's it. All of those tools are used in order to solve every single puzzle in the game. Let's go over a few so I can emphasize how weak this is. In the starting area, one puzzle requires that your eagle slides a hoop up a slope so that you can time each shot with the corresponding hoop. Pretty simple and a good way to start. Another early puzzle teaches you about lanterns and how you need to aim your camera so that after firing at one lantern, your arrow will go to the next one. This is pretty simple and good so far, as each of them are introducing mechanics that can be used for future puzzles. There's one more I want to talk about in this first level. This ruined library where you have to raise a platform in order to shoot through hoops and open a gate that will give you a weight that will allow you to get the talisman. This is how most puzzles are designed for the rest of the game. Shoot through hoops and lanterns, off mirrors, lift weights, move hoops, lift platforms. This is what you'll be doing for the entire game. Most of the time they involve a sequence of events to mostly line up hoops to fire. Or you just shoot a lantern from an angle or open gates to get weights that are needed for pressure plate puzzles, to where you can just stand on the last one in order to complete it. The most disappointing part of all this is the spirit vision ability. You get this early on and it becomes as used as the like button on YouTube rewinds. One puzzle made me use the spirit vision to shoot something and I hoped that it would have been expanded on, but sadly never was. One puzzle I thought was going to be incredible was this one in the last area. It's deep within a long vertical cavern and I wonder what I had to do. Then I looked down and saw what seemed to be platforms that I would need to raise in order to get the hoops in the right order. But I wondered if the fire spitters were going to be used, but they were only just for show. This puzzle was already halfway done. All I had to do was shoot them at the right angle to raise them and line them up as opposed to using the environment in a clever way. I'm not really sure what I was expecting, but this is just boring. This also feeds into how weak the world design is. You'll go through a forest, another forest, another forest, and then a mountain tundra. Then the final area acts as both a boss arena and a playable cutscene. Each area has one god in the form of an animal that you need to save. They take different monstrous forms while cursed. The missed opportunity here is that each of the areas and the puzzles could have been designed around each animal. The elk could have had a giant forest with thick trees, and each puzzle could have revolved around connecting shots that make paths similar to the elk's horns. The lizard could have had a sandy or rocky terrain, where the puzzles are designed around catching things from afar like glass jars or fragile rocks. The snake could have had tunnels or more rivers. The puzzles could have implored filling locations with water or making your own pathways to finish puzzles since snakes don't have arms or legs and would need them in order to move around some other way. The last one with the bear has the only interesting change already in the game. With frozen hoops, but a simple shot through a lantern can put these out. I think the better idea would be to have an ice ability that requires you to make your own platforms. Your arrows could still ricochet off of these for puzzle design. I say this because the game says that each of these areas is where each god lives, but it doesn't feel like that. Now you may have thought these ideas were great, or you may have thought I was an idiot for trying to make the devs make the game the way I want to, so let me say this. After reading those suggestions, I realized that it wouldn't even be possible because of the movement system. The giant trees would make the players have to zigzag around like crazy, the rocky terrain would have canyons and that the players would have a hard time getting out of them. The tunnels would be far too small in order to run around like the game wants, and I don't need to speak about the tundra because that area has steep hills that already make it hard to go up. I'm not going to go over every single puzzle in the game, but I do want to talk about are the boss fights. First, you should know that the cursed monsters will generate a large storm which will follow you and even teleport around. When caught, you cannot run and must instead stealth to your eagle while avoiding the light given off by the monster. I never got through any of these. Sometimes the monster can spawn right in your path with their light flashing and you are unable to move, and if they touch you, you are defeated. As for the bosses, the first phase is to chase them around and fire at weak points. They will attack back with fireballs and the environment itself will be against you since there are already sets of fire about. Once they transition to their own fighting arena, you enter a fight with them where you fire at weak points during their attacks. The craziest thing is that when you take damage during these fights, the boss will actually regain the last hit it took from you. I saw this in the third fight where after I was hit, the beast just regained one of its heads. The weird thing is that I don't see an alternative to this. I could say make it to where you die in one hit, but that will require too many reloads. This idea is just strange and I can't wrap my head around it. Another gripe I have with these fights ties to something that doesn't happen in the game. Out of all the upgrades you get, shooting faster is not one of them. This becomes a problem because bosses will have attacks that require immediate response or else you miss the chance to knock off damage. And my last gripe with the bosses is the lighting. I like the designs, but each of them is literally fiery red and it just hurts on my eyes. So before we end, I want to speak about some of the positives I have. The whole look of this game is just great. I love the scenery and how Flying High manages to make the world look really pretty. I love all the cutscenes and I think this would make for a pretty good animated film, and I love how they probably wrote their own original language just for this game. While I still have my problems with the movement, it was still fun, and of course the overall presentation is just wonderful in some parts. If this game just had a bit more, a fully fledged combat system with some enemies and the same size story, I would love this game, but sadly it has none of that. I wish this game was just a wild boss rush mode, with bosses spread across the land and that you need to do in any order, then this game would truly be pathless. Alright, and that's another video done. Yeah, this one was really short and I really wanted to keep it that way. I've been trying to work on some other short videos and stuff because I am working on something, I guess you could call it a bit big. I won't reveal what game it is yet, but I will reveal the game or games I will be doing next. I want to do Mortal Shell, and I forgot what the other one was already. I think maybe Code Vein from 2019, the anime Dark Souls. So yeah, those might just end up being the next games that I end up doing. And then of course the big project, that I'm working on right now. And I mean, considering how the game works, I don't think it's going to be that big, but hopefully it should probably be as long as the second video. That's what I'm hoping for. But anyway, thanks for watching.